Right, Jelana, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast again. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me again.
No, you're most welcome. I think it's been about it's got to be 2 years at least since we had a podcast. I remember like COVID kind of happened, and then we kind of did a podcast back then. But I think it was just like an audio podcast that we did previously.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you finally and meet you and everything. But your the work that you do, you help people with their social media. You do a lot of coaching. You put out a lot of great content. Like we said today, kind of go with the flow. But you said, you important to talk about like social media, what you do, social media content, the kind of current climate, how important it is, like social media and business and in the world. Like, where would you like to kind of go with it?
Yeah. I mean, I've been using social media for business since I would say 2013, but like Facebook and platforms like Twitter and like LinkedIn probably since the end of 2014. So I've been at it for quite some time. And they've changed so much like in the last couple of years, although like my main platform focus has been Instagram since early 2021. And I can say that Instagram, like, probably in about a week it changes more often than Facebook in the last or like Twitter in the last 5 years. So it's always interesting to see like the shift happening in the social platforms. And I think like during like the pandemic and everything, it's been kind of crazy because there's been like a lot of censorship, which I don't see that much. I think they've kind of like chilled out on that, although it's still a little bit crazy for like the free speech people. But yeah, like for businesses, I feel like it's really important these days to have a social presence, because if there's one thing the pandemic taught us is if you don't have a social presence, it's really hard for you to just rely on the offline strategies. I don't know,
Yeah,
what's your experience been, because I know you're
yeah,
on Instagram too.
yeah. No, I think they're all great points, and I agree with you. And I think like I kind of before the pandemic used Instagram. I didn't really use LinkedIn too much. And I think when that happened, I kind of, went all in on LinkedIn, started networking with people for the podcast, putting content on their Instagram, and, learning how it all kind of works. But I think, like you said, it fluctuates a lot on, the traffic, maybe how much reach you get. I think it's a lot harder on some platforms now than ever than to get reach, depending on the hashtags you use and learning what hashtags to use. But like you said, there's so many different platforms, people are sensitive for different things. So to try and get your word out there, trying to make that noise out there is quite a challenge. And I think like, understanding social media and not just using probably one platform, dispersing your content on different platforms. Because I remember, was it Instagram was down and everyone started like losing their minds. And it's like if you haven't got your content on another platform, then if that's your business and that's your lifeline, like it is for a lot of people, it's difficult because you have Twitter, you have LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I'm pretty sure there's some others as well. So trying to gauge with your platform, isn't it, really, and gain that audience on that platform.
Yeah, I think it's really important these days to be on multiple platforms because, back in the days, like 2014, 2015, and I would even say up to like the year, I mean, people still say that like focus on one platform, just build up one. And I think for beginners, like if you just started your business yesterday, I think it's going to be crazy for you to try to build content and build an audience on every platform. I think it's smart to at least secure your username so nobody else takes it, just set up an account, because that's kind of what I did. Because one thing that I do like about social media, I remember when I had a Facebook account, and then I was like, okay, so it's time for me to set up Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. And then when you set up a platform, it always asks you, hey, would you like to migrate your contacts? Would you like to invite? And like you immediately get the notifications about the people you potentially know. And then you kind of build up the network easily. And you have sometimes some of the same people following you around on all platforms, like your super fans, quote unquote. and then you like start discovering more people. So it's kind of like a snowball effect. So I think it's smart these days. I do not think that you can rely just on one platform. I think you do have to, take one piece of content and then publish it on multiple platforms, but don't just like copy and paste it. I always make sure that which actually recently what I've been doing, I've been taking some of my best Twitter posts and Instagram posts and publishing them on LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn is really one of those platforms I'm not going to say hate, but it was like one of those platforms, like, I don't know if I really fit in there. I don't know if the conversation is really like that great. Because, they do talk about politics over there too and stuff like that. But I was like, well, let me just go ahead and try. And with LinkedIn, there are a lot of people, but most people are just consuming content. So there's a lot of demand for content creators on LinkedIn. So the platform really pushes out your content to not just your followers, but to the other people. And if you scroll through your feed, and if you have like 100 connections or 50 connections, you'll see in your feed, kind of like in Twitter, so and so commented on this post, so and so, like, so you kind of like start discovering that. And if your audience starts engaging on your stuff, then their audience is also going to see that. So it's a lot of like, I think LinkedIn is really powerful for networking. And I'm kind of noticing, because I used to use Facebook a lot. I still use Facebook, like my personal profile, to like go to Facebook groups and network and that type of stuff. But people on Facebook, if you think about why people go to Facebook, it's like to hang out with friends, to like share some recipes or some memes and stuff like that. And it's like every single time, and I don't know if it's just like me, but like several of my friends have noticed like the same pattern. When you post something on your Facebook personal profile, I'm not even going to talk about the fan page, because if you're not spending some money on the ads, it's just kind of pointless. So I'm like, every single time you post a value-based post and kind of like a mini blog post, like very thought out, nobody cares. Then you post like a picture of your kid or a dog or somewhere traveling, everybody comes out of the woodwork liking your post and sharing. So I feel like Facebook is more of like a lifestyle, and like share some of your personal life without like going like too deep. And then LinkedIn is the platform that does appreciate value-based content. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I really want to share some of my like value-based posts, LinkedIn is really great because first of all, people are also very much into business. So I'm not into like cold pitches or anything like that, but it's easy to connect with people and talk business, because that's what everybody's there for. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like the chit chat. Hey, do you have a dog? How's your daughter doing? Like, it's like, we get to know each other through content anyway. So like, I'm not a huge fan person like of the regular chit chats. But yeah, I think it's smart to repurpose your content into multiple platforms, but tailor it to the platform that you're posting it on. For example, like I tend to cuss. Like I may not cuss in this podcast, just to don't like make any flags or anything like for your podcast episodes. But like on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, I could cuss. Like I could even cuss in like my YouTube video, and my editor would like beep it. But on LinkedIn, you're probably not going to see me cuss like ever. So like you have to like keep more professional, I feel like. So yeah, like always tailor it to the platform. So if like YouTube, for example, they're like very big into short form content right now, TikTok too, Instagram. So yeah, like I'm kind of getting on off tangent, so if you want to ask something else, go ahead.
No, not off tangent at all. And you can curse me, it's fine. And I think like it's true what you said. I think it's very targeted depending on what's on there. Like you think with Facebook, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook. I recently created a new account and created like a Facebook group for the podcast, and that's kind of all I ever go on there for, is like social stuff. Maybe if I go for a meal with my girlfriend, or we go out, put the pictures on there, go on my podcast group, post the link and the content. But like you said, I posted podcasts, some podcast things or certain things up. So not really the normal thing that you put on Facebook, and it gets no engagement or little at all. Might be a close family member who might comment on it or something like that. But like LinkedIn is mainly there for like networking and business. I think I love LinkedIn, but like some things I see and I think how the hell has that got 80,000 likes? And it might be a picture of a waterfall with some kind of like like a story on it or something like that. And I don't really, I mean, it is a nice picture, but I mean, I don't see why it's just got 80,000 likes and then there's, yeah, but I think that's just social media. There's certain things that tend to trend that just people gauge with. Um, so that's, it can be difficult trying to make that noise. But someone said to me once, there was like, it doesn't matter how many people like it, it's who likes it. So you might have, say, 10 people might like it. But out of those 10 people, you might have someone who's a CEO or someone who's in a certain position who can probably make leads or contacts, if that makes sense, rather than 200 people, and you might have one important person in that bunch. So
Right.
that I think helped me break it down whenever I post content. But yeah, like there's so many platforms. I think you have to go with what works for you, don't you? But it is important to be on more than one platform. Um, and sometimes it can be probably how the platform works. I mean, I'm noticing with Instagram. I mean, I use Instagram and LinkedIn mainly. I need to use Twitter more. Someone reminded me um, yesterday. They tagged me in a post on Twitter, and I almost forgot it was an app. But I saw a good thing on Twitter called Spaces. I don't know if you've seen it, where
Yeah.
yeah, it looks pretty good. You can have like a chat and people can join in. And there was a thing actually talking about social media, like Clubhouse, wasn't there? I know during the pandemic, Clubhouse came along. Did
Yeah.
you ever get engaged with that at all?
I mean, I started on it. Like, I remember, like, it was by invitation at first. So, like, I didn't get in, like, early, like a lot of people did. I believe it was, like, 2020 November or something like that, or December. So, I know a lot of people built really huge businesses. Like, people are still using it. And you know what? Like, I'm going to say, like, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I really love the concept. And I think the networking is great because you can join the room and there's, like, they're going to be freaking Grant Cardone or, like, somebody else important. And it's like, you can kind of, as they say, rub shoulders with like some of the leaders and talk to them, and it kind of puts you like in the spotlight, I guess, and you do get some eyeballs on you. I do like the fact that they do have some like networking events. I've participated in some where you kind of build a referral base, and everybody shares their business and then people connect with each other. And I feel like on Clubhouse you can connect with people that you wouldn't find otherwise. I found like some relationship coaches, business coaches that I'm still connected with them on Instagram, but I'm like, I know that I probably wouldn't even find them otherwise. But I'm just not as often on Clubhouse myself. Because like I kind of naturally gravitate towards the platform that I'm already on. And I do spend a lot of time on Twitter myself. So I was like, well, maybe I should just like start joining more spaces. There's actually not a lot of them happening out there. So I think there's a big opportunity, like in general, especially in the business sector. Because like I see maybe like, and I follow some big accounts, like I follow like what 400 or something people on Twitter, or 300, I don't know. And every week there's maybe like 3 or 5 spaces like total happening that I see. So I think it's a big opportunity there. And every single time I join some, like I always have like people messaging me or something. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great for podcasters too. So you maybe want to look into it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I saw it actually yesterday, and I thought it's something that I'm going to probably experiment with at some point. And I think like with Clubhouse, like in like social media, if you don't join it, you don't try it, then you just don't know who you're going to meet, do you? Or who that connection is going to open up with. It might, you meet someone on social media, they might refer you to someone who they know, and then you go off and do something or whatever. I think that's the kind of beauty of it. I'll just ask a question, just thinking about it. What mistakes do you see that people make in social media? If that makes sense, like in terms of posting content.
Oh, so many. Uh, well, first of all, one thing that I will say, because like managing social media platforms and then like kind of using it for myself for a long time, I think you have to do what's sustainable for you. because there has been such advice, and you may have heard it like before because it's been all over Instagram, that you have to post 3 to 5 times a day to grow, and you have to like, post video content every single day and post reels. And like there's been a lot of people who say like, oh, I grew like by 500,000 followers with reels in a year. And I'm like, okay, great, but there's also other factors that come like without reels, which like I'm not gonna be like a hater or anything, but I'm like, I don't know. Reels, I just don't feel like they're like the thing. It's just a short form video content. And I mean, if people remember Instagram from 2014, that's how Instagram started. We had 15-second videos and that's all we could do. And then it expanded to 60-second videos. Now we just have fancy sounds to add and like some trends and stuff like that. And I'll tell you one thing, like reels are great, and I think video content is definitely not going anywhere. Like it just keeps like being more and more. And I remember people said back in like 2018 that in the next like 5 years, video content is going to be 80% of your feed. And that's true. Like that's how it is today. Like there's really no way to escape video content. But when it comes to reels, things get boring. Like I'm personally like, and I love TikTok. Like I think during pandemic, a lot of us joined TikTok. And I was kind of a skeptic in the beginning because I was like, I don't know if it's like, it was like a very sketchy app to begin with. It was like, oh, like it's China. They're like lurking at you. They're stalking you. And I was like, I don't know, like what if it's going to get shut down? Like I didn't really put all my like effort into it. But as far as like the reels and video and like some of the mistakes people make, sometimes what I feel like is, video content is great, but when everybody's creating video content, I don't know about you, but like I come to Twitter to read content. I come to LinkedIn to read content. And I love the fact that Twitter, even though they've added new things, like you can like link your newsletter, you can do spaces, which I think is great, so people can actually like communicate with each other. But I do love the fact that they didn't pivot to like, let's do reels on Twitter. And I'm like, that's great, and I really hope they keep it that way, because I feel like during the whole like TikTok madness in the last 2 years, every social media platform and YouTube themselves too, they lost their individuality. You know what I mean? Like Instagram was always like the place for photographers. TikTok is the short form video platform. YouTube is the long form video platform. Now TikTok is trying to become a long form video platform. Like I'm not going to watch 10-minute videos on TikTok. Like that's not going to happen. Like a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, she sent me a video and I'm looking at like how long it is. And I'm like, dude, that's 10 minutes. I'm not watching that here. Like, even if it is good, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not used to that. Maybe we will like get used to it at some point and TikTok is going to take over the whole world. But it's kind of sad to me that like, and Facebook is now pushing like reels to the front. I'm like, I really don't come to Facebook to watch random people's reels. I just don't do that. And the same thing on LinkedIn, which I feel like on LinkedIn video kind of blends in, because like you see the mix of the feed, you see like some videos, then you see some written content, you see like some long form articles, and it's great. But when it's just like one thing, I don't know. So I feel like if you want to like create a sustainable strategy, post however often you can post. If it's going to be 3 times a week, let it be 3 times a week. And the other thing that you also have to think about when it comes to like your goals on social media, and I started thinking about that for myself, like, is my goal really to grow my following and like have like 100,000 people follow me, or is my goal to build my business and like focus on the like financial goals right now? And I was like, if it is financial goals, I don't have to be posting 5 times a day. Like I just have to be networking and talking to people. That really moves the needle in the business. Like I have to like get into networking. Maybe I should join some Twitter spaces and like go into the places where I can connect with other people rather than just like blindly posting content. Because a lot of the times what happens to entrepreneurs is they post, and then they hit that burnout spot. They can't post anything, then their business stagnates or like goes down. And like if you don't do what's sustainable, your body eventually is going to tell you like, I cannot do this anymore. Like I experienced this myself. And I've always been consistent with social media, but even lately I'm like, I'm honestly bored with content, because it's like you log into Instagram and it's all freaking video. And I love video content. I love creating video content, but I'm like, I'm just going to go back to carousels and like see what happens. I feel like mixing it up is really going to be like the strategy eventually. And especially now, like I really had like that feeling a while ago that trends were not going to be like, and the dancing is not always going to be like the thing. I'm like, people are probably going to get bored from that. And sure enough, now TikTok is favoring the original content. Now you have to get in front of the camera and like talk, and that actually does get like better views, and I feel like better quality of the people watching those videos, especially if they watch them in full. Because if it's just like a reel of somebody dancing, like every now and then I would scroll through Instagram and I'm like, well, let me go and like engage on some content, and I'm like, I don't even know what to say to those people. They're just like dancing, smiling, and like being ridiculous. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to start conversations when it's just like people dancing. So I feel like then everybody starts blending in.
Yeah, no, I think you raised some really good points there, and I think like I'll start off with the the video and the reels. Like I think they've also extended it to 90 seconds now, because I did a
Yeah.
reel yesterday and that was gone up to like, and I was like, wow, okay. So but then I was kind of like, well, what's the point? Just do a normal video post, because I think you can post up to 10 minutes or even more now.
Yeah.
So yeah, like like people on reels kind of blew up, and I quite like the concept of reels. I do reels. I think it's just out of habit for my own content. But I still do video posts, and I think they're as good pretty much. But I think it depends on, like you said, the trend. Certain reels trend, and I think like people go on social media and they just watch random stuff. I think if you go on social media platforms, it's good to kind of know what you want to look for, and otherwise, 20 minutes might go by, and then you've just watched random videos, and you can find a lot of quality stuff on social media if you go looking for it. As well, like dancing videos, I think I've done about, I think I did two videos where I was dancing. I think I was in a supermarket with my brothers or something, and I did one with my girlfriends or something like that. And I was like, that's enough. I don't feel comfortable in myself doing it, without a video, let alone with a video. So, um, like I think in terms of social media and what you post, I think you have to be genuine, don't you, really, in what you want to post. Like you said, people who are posting and posting and posting, there is that kind of burnout stage, I think, where we've all kind of experienced with you posting a lot of content, because it is like, a job, really, alongside everything else you do. And like you said, mixing up that content, so maybe not all just having video, maybe have audio samples, maybe have image like quotes or alongside things. So it's kind of having it mixed up, isn't it, really? Because people, like you said, you might get bored of just seeing um the same content over and over from what people are posting. And the 10-minute, I didn't even realize they have long content now on TikTok, up to like, is it quite long, is it now on TikTok? I've
Yeah,
not
it's
seen.
like up to 10 minutes now.
Oh, that's, yeah, because the things like you said, I mean, I've made videos where I posted things for a long period of time, but then people haven't got the time always to engage with that, have they? Whereas
Hmm.
you think YouTube, you can spend half an hour on a video on YouTube.
And it's interesting. I actually asked a question to my Facebook audience like 2 days ago, and I asked, where do you consume content the most? The vast majority of people, like, I don't know how many comments it got, like 20 or 30. Majority of people consume content on YouTube, surprisingly, which actually not that surprising, because I'm like, well, on TikTok, you kind of go and like see a bunch of short form video content, you see like what's trending. And then the interesting thing, like, well, I feel like platforms like YouTube and TikTok, they kind of make you spend money. Like if you search for something on YouTube, like so and so product review, and you want to see like or a testimonial or like how the product works, like you already have your credit card in hand and you're just wanting to like make the final purchasing decision. And I found the same thing on TikTok. I'm like, I probably watched a lot of videos of like other like makeup gurus suggesting makeup or like some clothes or like whatever, and then like I run to Amazon or to another store and like buy that thing, and I'm like, dang, like it's, yeah, it's, and it also people find TikTok kind of like a search platform. Like I saw somebody recently say on Twitter that people do use it like a search engine these days. And I actually do that myself, like every now and then. Like I noticed, like if there's like something, and not like to like go into politics or anything like that, but I'm like, if I want to see what's really going on, if somebody says, oh, so and so country is like having a war or whatever, so I'm like, well, let me see what people are actually posting, because I'm like, if they're posting somewhere, they're posting on TikTok these days. And sure enough, like you go, like you type the country or like something, like some sort of topic, and you always find, whatever's going on. And some people are gonna lie, some people are gonna like say the truth or whatever. But yeah, like YouTube is definitely still a platform where people spend a lot of time, learning and, figuring something out. So I'm like, man, I just wanted to take a break from YouTube for summer. And it sounds like I have to get back at it. Yeah. So, and I don't know like how successful YouTube shorts are. Cause I don't know, like it's a great concept. Like again, like the whole like short form content, but I'm like, YouTube is the search engine. So like, can we keep it that way, please? So yeah.
Yeah, I think they have to be careful, don't they, how much they try and be like other platforms, and rather than staying probably original to how they are. Because I've posted a few videos on YouTube, and then if you post a short video, I noticed it automatically puts it out as a short, and it's not. I put it then puts it into a different category, and then you're like, wait, I don't want it to be a short. I just want it to be a small video, and then
Hmm.
it goes and does that. But like what you said with TikTok, I did the exact same thing with the thing happening, what we all know, and I googled it, and the content was a bit all over the place. So I take one on TikTok, and you find genuine content because that's what people are using to put stuff out there, um,
Hmm.
as well as YouTube. But it's interesting to see how social media changes, and the way it works, and how I love networking with people through social media, and I've made some really great friends through Instagram, through LinkedIn, a couple through Twitter, and I think it's quite magical how that kind of those connections work. But like I was saying to my girlfriend who posts like jewelry posts, she makes like jewelry, handmade jewelry, and I was saying to her, with the hashtags, be careful which ones you use, because if there's a million tags, probably not people probably aren't going to see it. So
Yeah.
I found that out a couple of years ago. Someone said to me, you know, you say Instagram, for example, you type in a hashtag, say cats, it will say 1 million and whatever thousand. Whereas when you post, do you think it's important to use relevant tags and to look at how many tags are associated with that tag?
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's one thing, like using big hashtags, like, first of all, yeah, like your post is just gonna get lost. And there's such a thing where you can like rank in a hashtag and you can show up like in the top of the feed if you like choose like the top post. I believe that's what it is on Instagram right now. It's really hard to rank for that kind of hashtag because there's just like you post and then there's like 100 other people that post after you, and then no one's going to see your piece of content. Like you think it's like, oh, there's like so much traffic there. I mean, not really, just a lot of people using it, not necessarily a lot of people looking at it. And then the other thing with large hashtags, and especially the old ones, there's like some hashtags like laugh, smile, like follow for follow, like they're banned. So if you do use one of those banned hashtags, and like I believe there's like a Google article or something that shows like which hashtags are banned on Instagram. So if you use one of those, then your account is gonna be shadow banned. So that's what they call. So your reach is pretty much gonna be like very minimum. I like to use hashtags that are like under 250,000 posts. Sometimes it's manual research. Like I use some tools too to like help me with the research. One that I use is called flick.tech, FLICK.tech. So that's helpful. Like they kind of show you like the search and like how well are the hashtags are going to do for your account. So that's like super helpful. And then the other thing, I don't know if you've noticed this about Instagram, when you type in a keyword into the search, let's say it's like like I don't know, Italy travel, something like that, and then it kind of works like a search engine right now too, because like if you go, it kind of shows you like the whole feed of like reels and regular posts and if you like want to rank for specific keywords like that, one thing that you also have to like think about is what do you include in your caption. So because I've noticed like some of the accounts that rank for like a keyword like Italy travel, they mention it in their like either alt text, or they mention it like of an image, or they mention it in the caption. So it's like there's hashtags and there's also keywords.
Yeah, there's so much to social media, isn't there? It's a lot of research and it's forever changing. So I mean, like you said, a lot of these things, you're talking about, we're talking about, people probably aren't aware of. And I think, like you said, people put, like I've seen sometimes they put hashtags in so they'll do a post say, on Instagram, then they'll put like say 30 hashtag 20 hashtags or however many in the comments below, like, and that might draw more traffic in as well. I've seen people put hashtags in stories. I don't know if that works or not.
No, not anymore.
But it's interesting to to learn. I think learn new things about it as well, because it is quite difficult trying to ultimately get your noise out, your word out there, your content out there amongst however many other thousands of people are posting things as well, and it's trying to be like unique, isn't it? Really, as well.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's it's that making sure that you share what's authentic to you, and also like there's a lot of very similar content. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like there's also no such thing as unique content because everything has been created out there. So like the topics, like it's all the same. You just have to ultimately find your own spin on it and like share your own experience. I think something that works really well is documenting what your like your day to day is looking like, because people tune into stories to that. Like I know I watch a lot of my stories who are like doing gardening or they have like pets or like something. So that's always interesting. So like always finding ways how you can put your own spin on things. Like even if you're gonna record like a reel, I kind of stopped doing a lot of these trends. Like I will do a trend here and there if I really like it, or if it's like something that can be funny or entertaining, because that's kind of like the edutainment they call it, like education entertainment and like all in one. So that works well. Like every now and then I feel like if you do a trend like every single day, it just gets annoying. That's like, man, like every single person's creating that, it's so boring. But when, and I feel like I watch more videos these days where people actually speak and they share like, hey, 5 different hacks or 5 different websites where you can find so and so information, or like this is how you can like create like a specific like cool looking video or like a vlog. Like I like tutorial videos too. So doing something, sharing your own experience, sharing behind the scenes, talking on video, like I feel like those are always like more unique than anything else.
Yeah, that's it. I agree, and I think it's adding that value, isn't it, to the listener, to the audience, and getting to know what they want and what they like and what they engage with and who your audience is. Because I think someone said to me, you might be posting something that's good in your mind, or and you might be missing the target almost, because it's like if you might post something with a certain soundtrack, or you might structure something a certain way, but the audience might not like it. So you have to kind of be quite careful and mindful, don't you, when I think you post things. But it's something that's a process, isn't it? Really, I think we're constantly engaging with it, and it's something that's always evolving and doing what you think is right. Really, like, is there any tips that you would say? People starting out in social media, like anything, any advice for that?
Yeah, so like first I would say, because a lot of the times people ask like which platform should I go with, I would say, I used to suggest go where your potential audience is at. These days, like yes, there's like different demographics. TikTok is for a little bit of a younger crowd, although they do have older people like today too. But I would say go to the platform where you already naturally spend more time on. So if you're on Instagram all the time, go to Instagram. If you're on LinkedIn all the time, go there. Like I'm on Twitter a lot, so I was like, well, like I spend so much time there, might as well create content and like network and make the something useful out of it. So that's the first step. The second step, I would say, always brand you and your company. So make sure and it's not even about like the visuals, or like, it's always nice to have like a cohesive like brand look and like similar colors that you can use all the time, and like the fonts, so your brand stands out and people know. Because like if you think about Lewis House, it's always the orange color, like, his podcast, like the School of Greatness. So like I can always like see like the font and everything. So like I already imagine how his brand looks like. So that's one thing. Start posting, like start posting whatever is relevant to your products, your services, to your brand. And like, don't aim to go viral, because a lot of the times people think, oh, like, I have to like reach this like goal of like having 1 million views. Nothing really changes after 1 million views. Like, a lot of people cannot even monetize that. So like, focus on staying consistent, posting content, and like meet 5 new people every day. Like, if you make it a goal, I feel like that's very doable. Like, whether it's people in the comments, like LinkedIn, like they're all the same like the concepts for each platform are really the same. LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, like, you always network, you always interact. Share your opinion, but also be careful. Like, I feel like these days people get offended so easily. Like, we're so divided into like, I'm pro this, I'm against this. So like, I'm always being cautious of what I say and to whom I say, because there are certain people that can understand my sense of humor. Then there's other people who I know they're gonna like block me or like call me out on some shit. So you have to be careful with that. Be kind of like tolerant to other people, because it's very easy to like hate or cancel others. Like the whole like cancel culture, I think it's like I don't know, it's total bullshit. Like, I really dislike that myself. But yeah, so like some of those tips, like really networking, I feel like you have to also define your goals for social media. Like, why are you joining it? Are you joining it just to go viral, or are you joining it to bring more business and more customers for your company? So, and also like, don't be afraid to like not have any engagement for a while, because a lot of the times people are like, oh, like, what if I post and there's like crickets? There's probably going to be crickets for a while when you get started, and that's probably the best time to also practice your videos, or say whatever you want to say, and like, because there's no one really watching in the beginning. So because I remember when I was starting with videos on Instagram, it was so scary. But then I was like, I really don't have an audience, so like, I shouldn't be scared. Like, there's not going to be people, like, that many people judging or whatever. And yeah, like, the other tip I would also say, like, embrace video, because even if it's not going to be like a daily video, because I think that may be like a little bit overboard, but even like a video like every 2 weeks or once a week, or something to get in touch with your audience. And when people can put your like face to your voice, that's always more powerful, and I feel like that's such a great relationship builder. So yeah, and always stay consistent. Like, if you quit, then nothing really works.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. And I think, like, the key thing you mentioned, like, consistency, and how important that is to be consistent, because it's something that I think it's something that I learned, having a podcast and doing content, like being consistent. And even if you're not, I feel it in myself. And it's like, if you don't go for a run for a while, it's like that it's like a muscle, isn't it? Almost like posting content, being consistent is like a muscle.
Yeah.
And I think, it's important to be consistent. And like you said, you could post, it's not to be every day, you could post a piece of content every week or every 2 weeks, whatever it works best for you. But keeping people probably in the loop, maybe what's happening. But it's that kind of fine balance, isn't it, depending on your probably life situation, etc.
Yeah, I think storytelling is a really big thing. Because people always ask, like, well, how am I different than everybody else? Because if, let's say, you're listening to this right now and you are, I don't know, a real estate investor, and you're like, well, there's 1 million other real estate investors creating content, how am I different? Well, you probably have different experience, your story is different than somebody else's, your background is different. So I feel like storytelling and story selling, like, those concepts are really powerful, because just sharing like a bunch of numbers is boring, people always relate to stories. And, like you said, that picture of a waterfall on LinkedIn, like stuff like that does get engagement, because when people can share a powerful story or something where it's like a great message or something like that, it always gets interaction. I always notice those stories. Like, also, if you are like on any platform and you see something is getting traction like that, I feel like especially on LinkedIn, because it's easy to spot those kind of like viral stories, like learn from them, maybe even, I don't know, copy them to like a spreadsheet or something where you can come back to it and see why it really worked and kind of study it. I think that always helps to, not just see and think, oh, that's so great that they got so much engagement, but also see like why they got it. Because you always notice patterns. Like the more you study viral content, the more you see patterns of what works. Oh, they had a great hook, they had a great headline, it was a catchy image, and then like they, really piqued my interest. It's usually always like thought provoking, or like there's some sort of like surprise or something in the story. So yeah, I feel like, you sharing your story, and a lot of the times people say, oh, but I don't really have anything to share. We all do. There's always something where you have to like dig deep, although it's not fun to dig deep into like the bad and like, I don't know, like heartbreaking stories or anything like that, but people always relate to that stuff. And I feel like content that people can relate to, like, is always also a great relationship builder too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And like you said, digging deep, and then maybe like you said, people tend to post positive stuff all the time, and if you talk about a shared experience or something that you've perhaps been through a difficult time, and then like you said, thinking about, it's quite clever, isn't it? Really, it kind of probably ties into psychology, by putting a certain image that grabs your attention, and then linking it and structuring that story or that text in a certain way. Because I think, if you see a lot of text, sometimes people, they go, oh, you catch the first bit, then you have to kind of read the rest. Whereas I think that's something that I heard people saying, do long content, do, put a lot of text into it. Because if it's got probably maybe a few words, people, probably going to read it quickly or not take it as serious. Do you think? I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I think especially like I'm going to touch on LinkedIn because I read so many long posts over there, and I used to write a lot of long posts on Facebook myself that would get like a lot of engagement, like back in the days when I was like extremely active on Facebook, should I say. And I always said that if you're really good at writing, if your story really like piques interest and is, interesting to read through, it's always gonna get read. And I think on LinkedIn the same thing. Like the key is always kind of like with email marketing. A lot of the times people put so much thought and effort into like the subject line, but I'm like, your goal of a subject line is for people to click on the damn email, and that's it. And then, worry about the content in the email. Like the subject line is just for one thing, to get the open rate. And then on LinkedIn, like the first, how many is that, like 2-3 lines before it says like the button like read more. So you have to put some effort into those, maybe like even rewrite those a couple of times, or like the rest is still has to be great, but the first, like those two like mini paragraphs, they have to be on point. And then the other thing that I would also say, as far as like content and like caption writing, make it readable. Because if it's just like one big ass paragraph, no one's going to pay attention to that. Add some emojis. Like people even add emojis on LinkedIn. There's even like a haha like reaction on LinkedIn. So I guess LinkedIn is being more fun these days. So yeah, like, and make it readable, spread it out. And when it's easy on the eye, when people can like, because there's different kinds of readers too. There's people who skim through the text and they kind of get the whole context, and there's people who read like word for word. So I sometimes am a skimmer. So if I get like the gist of the story, like in, like by scrolling through it, then, I'm probably going to engage and comment on it, and maybe even read the full thing, like word for word, if it's really that good. So yeah, like it's kind of thinking about the people's eyes too. So it's easy to read. And yeah, I think long stories definitely do get read.
Yeah, I think it, like you said, it's people put long content out there, and it's some people might skim through the key pieces of that, of the content, or read the whole thing. And I know I kind of like read the whole thing on some people's posts, and got hooked in because like a catchy headline, or this is my story, and then you kind of end up reading like a couple of paragraphs. So like you said, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all the platforms are so kind of similar yet different at the same time, aren't they? And I know, like, is it Facebook owns Instagram and
Yeah.
WhatsApp, and they're kind of all like linked. Do you have any like kind of mentors or role models, or anyone you've kind of learned things from, or anyone you kind of like look up to in social media or content?
Yeah, as far as social media, honestly, like I've learned from so many people over the years because I started with network marketing. So I was learning like from network marketers at the time. Then I ventured into more like affiliate marketing and coaching consulting. So then like I switched to the other people who I was learning from. There are some people who work like at Facebook, like Marie Smith. I sometimes pay attention to what she says because, she always kind of says what's current and relevant. The other person who I always keep up with, I really hate that, is Adam Masseri, who is the head of Instagram. And yeah, I kind of have anxiety like every single time he posts a new video because it's at this point pretty much daily. There's something new on Instagram. So it like being a social media manager is like a full-time job, literally. Like even if you have like, a handful of clients, it's still because some people try to glamorize that and it's like, oh, you can like make $1 million a year. And I'm like, you really gotta like catch up with everything and like stay on point. Because that's like why clients hire me because they don't want to keep up with that crap. So I'm like, yeah, Adam Masseri, always quote unquote looking forward to his videos. Um, and then yeah, like there are some YouTubers that I pay attention to that kind of like, like talk about pretty much the same thing that like the creators of social media or like the heads of social media talk about. And then a lot of it is like trial and error. It's like me studying other people's content, like I mentioned earlier, then me posting and like seeing if this is gonna work, if that's gonna work. And I generally experiment on my account. And then with clients' permission, I experiment on their account because I'm like, well, let's see what's gonna work. Because today it's video, tomorrow it's gonna be a carousel. So it's always, I feel like with marketing and with social media in general, it's always a big experiment. It's not like a set in stone strategy. You always have to be flexible, and it's like it's not like it's gonna work. What works today may not work a year from now, so we have to be on top of it.
No, it's a really good explanation. I think like you said, like pivoting and adapting, and like you said, one thing might not work in X amount of time, and what people tend to watch and look at like shifts and changes. And I think like you said, from a business point of view as well, it's important, isn't it, for businesses to be able to market themselves in the right way? Because if that's their business, they have a restaurant or they have a shop, they want to obviously get new business and clients. So
Right.
having that good way of pitching their social media is like really important. And it's important to have like, mentors and role models in social media that, the ones you mentioned.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm also going to add for like anybody listening, I feel like it's also like this always helps me as far as content creation for myself and for clients. Don't just get inspiration from people in the same industry that you are. So for me, for example, if I look at what other social media managers are creating, I'm probably going to be creating the same crap that they're doing, which, like it's probably great content and everything, but I go to other niches and industries. Like I go to, let's say, a restaurant or like a dentist, like especially if it's like a TikTok. I like to get inspiration from others. Even like sometimes you get inspiration from like, I don't know, like a Times Square ad that you will see like on being posted on social media from somebody. So don't just look at your industry, go a little bit beyond, and kind of see what's going on in the entire business world, or like other creators or influencers, or yeah, just people who, for example, if you're a business coach, look at what relationship coaches are doing, look at what life coaches are doing, because they're talking about different topics, but you can use some of the concepts or get ideas. Like there's, for example, one account that I follow on Instagram, and they talk about most like finances and finances for millennials. I don't talk about that at all, but there are some content pieces that just inspired what I can create, either like some sort of like listicles or carousels, or like I get inspiration from like their design or something. And you never copy, you get an idea, and then it kind of like sparks like something else. So looking at others is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, actually. Like learning from other people in different areas. So, say, like you in coaching, you're looking at probably say dentists or doctors or, people who like, could make food. That's one of those videos blow my mind, and the content where people they'll be making something and they show you those kind of like time lapse kind of videos, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. In different areas, people do like makeup. Like my girlfriend was watching a video of those people where they make themselves look like someone famous, and you see them before and what they're doing, and then afterwards. And it's interesting to see, like you said, other areas rather than kind of staying in that same lane all the time.
Hmm.
And like as well, like with your, where can people kind of find your content, your website, your social media? Where can people find what you do?
Yeah, so I do have a website where I pretty much have like all the social media links over there. So you're probably gonna link them in the show notes. JelenaOstrovska.com is my website, and then you can find me by my name on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. So if you need, yeah, like just find me like wherever. I'm pretty active on all social media.
No, that's awesome. And like, I really love what you do, and your content's really great. And I think, it's good that you're out there to help other people with their social media and what they do. You're providing value to them, and it's really, really great work you're doing. And it's great to connect with you today, because it's been, like 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's good to connect with you, and I wish you all the best in everything that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. Really appreciate you.
No, you're most welcome. You too. You take care.
Yep, you too.
Right, where is